Welcome to another episode of Head to Head Sports. I'm your host, Brian Parker, along with my co-host, Mr. Randall Hargrove. How you doing, sir?
All right, man. Fresh out of the hospital, had to have some surgeries. That's the reason. Laid up today, but I'm here. We're gonna get through the show.
Oh, the surgery you were telling me about. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
man. Whew. Well, thank you for making it. I'm a little bit under the weather myself. I got a regular cold, everybody. I don't have the vid. There was a time when you could just sniffle, have have phlegm and all that other stuff, and it had nothing to do with COVID-19. So I got something, but it ain't the vid. So Theraflu, here I come. Anyway, hopefully this week my connection is a little bit better.
It
Um,
sounds better already. Sounds way better.
well, then I thought maybe it was Spectrum not giving me a really good internet signal or something else because we were having signal issues through the house. But to be honest, fully transparent, the biggest issue is that I had so much media files on my computer, it was slowing it down.
Yeah.
So I literally got myself a 2 gigabyte hard drive, external hard drive, put everything that was on my desktop onto that hard drive because I have backups to my backups. So it was pulling so much memory that trying to stream just became harder and harder and harder. So that's all I did. I was like, this is a fairly new computer. I shouldn't be having to think about buying a new computer. This computer by itself has a terabyte of storage, which is why I got it. I was like, okay, I won't need a computer for a while. But now I think about it, we have done over 50 shows for Head to Head Sports and over 50 shows for the other Head to Head show, in addition to all the other media storage that I've uploaded onto the Head to Head channel. Head to Head channel on the Empower TV channel. What's going on, Brad? So all of that just basically clogged up the system, and hopefully it's working better now. So if you are watching us, thank you for joining us for another week of Head to Head Sports. We do this every Wednesday during the NFL season at 6 p.m. Let all your friends know about it. We are part of the Empower TV network. Empower Network can be seen on Roku as well as Amazon Fire TV. We have now added a new platform and just want to keep expanding. So thank you for joining. We definitely want to talk about this crazy week 18. They gave us an extra regular season week, took away a preseason week, took away us having even weeks as far as 16 game weeks, meaning that there's more of a chance a team can finish 8-8 than 8-6-1 or something, or 8-7-1 rather. And now we didn't know if the ties would really factor in this year because of that oddity. Actually, it kind of helped your boys out a little bit because normally I view ties as losses, but this particular year, a tie counted almost more like a win for your Pittsburgh Steelers. Congratulations. Y'all made it into the playoffs.
Yeah. I'd predicted Pittsburgh at the beginning of the year to finish about 10-7. When you look back, they finished 9-7-1. Should have won that Detroit game. That would have been the 10-7, but they ended up tying that.
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
right. It helped us get into the postseason of some other teams. But while we're on Pittsburgh, Mr. Parker, what I need you to do is look deep into the eyes of Pittsburgh Nation, deep into the eyes of Big Ben, and apologize to Pittsburgh Nation and Mike Tomlin himself for predicting my boys to finish last place in the North.
Oh, Lord. You know what? I will gladly apologize for a few reasons for believing more in Baker Mayfield's ability not to get in the Cleveland Browns' way of winning more games, of the coach his coach is Stefanski, not sitting there, not relying on the two-headed monster that is Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt more, and putting the ball more so in one Baker Mayfield's hands.
Who was
So I
injured for the
definitely,
greater part of the year.
yeah, I definitely apologize, because when I looked at the teams in that division, the only reason that I put the Steelers dead last is that, to me, it looked like all of the other teams uh, had made vast improvements in the offseason. And that those pieces actually worked together, having a full mini camp and preseason and OTAs and all these other things that they were able to have, albeit with COVID protocols in place, that they would be able to improve. Because the one thing that you do know is that if you don't make a lot of improvements, then you're not going forward. You're normally going backwards.
Right.
But a lot of that too, they're intangibles. Pittsburgh has intangibles like Mike Tomlin. Pittsburgh has intangibles like one TJ Watt. And once I think Ben made it very, very clear that this would be his last year, you could really see where this team just kind of dialed it in even more, and they played for him.
They did.
You could really tell. And again, this harkens me back sometimes when I look at my local Carolina Panthers team. You can tell me the offensive lines aren't good. You can tell me, all these different things. But if you got a good coach and you got players dialed in and just ready to win for somebody, a lot of times you can overcome that. And there's no team in the playoffs this year that is more of an example of that than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I give my props to the Steelers.
Yeah, and I ain't picking on you, man. You know that you were not alone in your assessment. There were multiple analysts that had the Steelers pick for third and fourth in the division. I just didn't see it. You have to go back to 2002 when the AFC North was created.
Mm-hmm.
The Steelers have not finished last place in the division ever. You actually go all the way back to 1988, the old AFC Central, where the Steelers finished last place. That was the last time they finished last place in the division, was 1988. So, yeah, it is just props to Mike Tomlin. Hopefully they keep that streak going next year. It's going to be a lot more difficult with the improvements that I'm sure that the Browns are going to make and the Ravens are going to make. Surprising last place finish for Baltimore too. That was crazy, but yeah, it's going to be a lot more difficult next year. So hopefully they'll keep that streak going, but we'll see.
Yeah, Baltimore, I didn't pick them to win the division. I'd actually picked Cincinnati. So I was right who was going to win. But I got the order wrong. But because I saw the three-headed receiving monster, but I didn't foresee Joe Burrow going from season one, albeit he had a shortened season one because of the injury he sustained. But he just started balling out. And I kind of saw that in him before he got hurt, that, hey, if you keep him off of his back, this guy is going to blow people up. I didn't see Baltimore going, Brad, hey now. I didn't see Baltimore taking that next step, because out of the three teams between them, Cleveland, and Cincinnati, I saw them lose a lot of running backs at the beginning of the season, even though I knew their main running back also was their quarterback. Mark Andrews had kind of started slipping a little bit, where it really depended on if Lamar was dialed into him. But whether it was Lamar Jackson, Tyler Huntley, or Josh Johnson, they kept finding Mark Andrews. He had a really, really good time this year, being a up-and-coming tight end. He's really put that on his back now. But even so, it looked like the pieces in Cincinnati were a little bit more ready to take that next step. Now, my hesitance with pulling Cincinnati out of the hat like that was the fact that you always think about the Bungles in the back of your mind being the Bungles. And at some point, okay, they're going to fall on their face because, well, that's just what Bungles do. And they did have a little rough patch. But Rand, I think there's more teams than not this year that had some bad and some very questionable losses this year. Only a few teams I can see kind of maybe escaped really, really bad losses. But for the most part, every team this year had a loss that left you scratching your head like, wait a minute, you lost to
Yeah.
who?
Yeah, and we could start right there with that sentence that you just said and blend it into the Colts versus the Jaguars, which
Woo!
actually began the haywire that was Sunday. I mean, that was unbelievable. The Steelers needed that victory before anything else could even transpire. And somehow Jacksonville kills them, not just beats them, kills them.
Yes,
It's
yes.
crazy how they have the Indianapolis Colts number. I was just checking out some crazy stats today. You
Mm-hmm.
know, last year the Jags were 1-15. Their only victory was against the Colts in Jacksonville. And then I'm looking at the final score, 26-11. And I'm like, wow, when is the last time the Jacksonville Jaguars beat anybody by 14, 15 points?
Yeah.
And you have to go back to the 2019 season where they beat the Indianapolis Colts for 15, so by 18 actually. So
And I want to make it clear that score isn't even as close as it is.
no, they
I mean, it
dominated
really
that game.
was because they scored that touchdown late in the fourth quarter and got the 2-point conversion. Through three quarters, it was 23-3.
I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah, so Carson Wentz really was slinging the ball all over the place. I'm kidding. 17-29 for 185. They really held Jonathan Taylor back because he only ran for 77 yards, which was Jonathan Taylor like. As a matter of fact, if I remember the stat correctly, that was the first time since week 3 that he had been held under 100 yards.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about that, I'm sitting there watching the game. They held him on 4th and 2 and 4th and 1 twice.
Yeah,
I'm like, what?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a haywire game. It was almost like week 18 was just one for the ages, where I'm just watching some of these games and going, okay, okay. Even the Texans playing the Titans, Houston, and this was amazing in a lot of ways. A lot of these teams had absolutely nothing to play for. A
Right?
win was going to put them into the playoffs. They could have just laid down and said, you know what, we're not a good team. We got a lot of holes, got a lot of issues. Let's just play this game, get out of here, and start our vacation plans. Come back next year and try to right the ship. The Texans were another example of that. Tennessee is trying to lock up the number 1 seed in the AFC, and the Texans are giving them everything that they can. Where they etch out a victory 28-25, but that game was in doubt for most of that game.
It
Um,
was.
I mean, Houston had a chance to win. I'm gonna give our hometown um, product Pep Hamilton some props. He's the quarterback's coach currently, maybe not too much longer. For the Houston Texans, Pep was a quarterback for West Charlotte Lions back in 90-92, school I went to. But I give him the props because, Tyrod Taylor was their starter, and he's been in and out of the lineup. Even at the beginning of the year when he couldn't go, they had to bring in one Davis Mills. And to see the evolution of Davis Mills as a starter in the league where he's had to perform. Davis Mills threw 23 of 33 for 301 and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions as a rookie.
Yeah, man. And that just furthers the case for why the Panthers are looking at Mr. Pep for the offensive coordinator position.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes. Because whoever they bring in, it's going to start with the quarterback. You got to be able to, work a quarterback. And Pep has been the OC for the Indianapolis Colts before. He was there with Andrew Luck. He was Andrew Luck's coordinator at Stanford. and he
Yeah.
came over to the NFL. So Pep has been in the league for, I believe he was also in Minnesota, but Pep has been in the league for a long time, working with a lot of these quarterbacks. So if he gets the job at Carolina, that may be one of the few things that Matt Rule gets right, and I'll go all in on Matt Rule shortly. Another game, Rand, that really got me, and I said this on the last show, how unsurprised I would be if the Dolphins beat the Patriots, because for some reason, when the Patriots go to some sunny weather, they have a really hard time playing the Dolphins. It's
Mm-hmm.
like when they come down south, it's something that the Dolphins do to them that, you know, they could be running 8 games in a row and everything else. And if they got to go to Miami, you almost know that's a L. And again, Mac Jones, who's been called Lil Brady. See, y'all got to be careful giving people titles too early. He ain't done nothing to earn no title, Lil Brady, other than he play on the same team that Brady used to play for. But y'all didn't call Cam Lil Brady. So it can't be that. You know, maybe he just fit the look, you know, white Patriot. There you go. So anyway, the Dolphins ended up beating the Pats 33-24. It didn't keep the Pats out of the playoffs, but the Dolphins played for their coach, Brian Flores, who ended up getting fired, surprisingly, on Black Monday anyway, after winning, was it 8 of the last 9 games?
Yeah.
They started out a little slow, but you know, they were going through Tua having his injury, the team talking about whether they were going to pursue Deshaun Watson and everything else. Brian Flores, by every testament that I hear, is a really, really good coach. Just needed more time with this team. It just seemed like the owner, you know, owners have to be realistic. You hire people in these GM and coaching positions because, number one, they probably are more of the expert about the game than you are. Just because you got a bag full of money doesn't mean that you're an authority on football, Daniel Snyder, Jerry Jones. It doesn't necessarily mean that. And that doesn't mean that you give ultimate leeway for whomever you hire. It is a production-based league. But for what your team has done over the last 3 years, you know, and I heard a couple analysts say this, and it was in my mind, Rand, before they even said it. I was like, man, this kind of reminds me of the whole Jim Caldwell thing in Detroit. Like, what more do you want him to do with what you're giving him?
Yeah, from what I've been reading or hearing about, I haven't kept up really close to it, but evidently he had some kind of locker room battle against some of the players, and they didn't appreciate his antics. But I mean, come on, I mean, dude is the head coach. To me, a player has to recognize a player's position. And a coach should be gratified the respect and authority of being a coach, especially one that is, you know, started 1-7, but now got you on the brink of going to the playoffs by winning 8 of the last 9. So I just didn't understand that.
I didn't understand it either.
Should have had more support.
Well, you know, my only pushback on that story, and I'm not saying that it's wrong, but normally if it was toxic issues, it would show up on the field where, okay, you're not going to the playoffs.
Right.
So what motivation do you have to go out there and beat the hell out of the Patriots?
Right.
I mean, why did you win all these games in a row? He was obviously holding the locker room enough. It was he hadn't lost his locker room because they were still going out every week, being very competitive and winning. Did the Dolphins make the playoffs last year? Good question, Brad.
Man,
I don't think they did.
I don't know. I don't think they did either.
I don't think they did, Brad.
Search that though, find out.
Yeah. So, Brad, are you asking because you know that the answer is no, and you're saying that was a reason to fire him, or just asking in general? I mean, I can go back and look. Was it 20? What year are we in? 2022, 2020. So that would have been year 2020. No, just curious. Playoff teams.
They were 10-6.
AFC.
I'm not sure if they made the playoffs with
Yeah,
a
I
team.
remember that they did go one of the years, but I don't think they went last year. No, because it was the Titans, the Chiefs, the Bills. It was the Titans, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals. Oh, that's this year. I asked for
Yeah.
2020.
They didn't make the playoffs, but they did have a 10-6 record. And they were right on the verge of the playoffs, just like this year on the verge of the playoffs. So
Oh, Anthony. Yeah. Anthony, I'm not going to lie to you. I was wondering that too. He said, is it because owners don't want black coaches? They have the power over a team. Brad says, we know our leashes tend to be really short. And when he means our leashes, he means head coaches of color.
right.
And yeah, I do wonder that because I've seen the same thing, even with my man out in San Diego, that ended up not lasting but 1 year. Anthony Lynn.
Yeah. Another good coach.
And quarterbacks of color. It's almost like they really got to prove a lot of stuff. When you look at some of these other coaches that year after year after year, even when they have bad seasons, Marvin Lewis was good. Yeah. Now, Marvin Lewis, I was surprised Marvin lasted as long as he did, to be honest with you, because to your point, if we're talking about coaches of color having short leashes, and I know there's two different people that mentioned that, Marvin lasted a whole lot longer than you would think. and part of me thinks it was because they probably didn't know if they could get anybody better than Marvin. Sometimes what happens is a team performs well enough, but they don't necessarily make the playoffs, but they're not bad. They're not scrubs, but they're not great. A perfect example is a team will sit there and win a bunch of games and can't get in the top 10 of the draft because their record was decent, but not good enough to get them in the playoffs. The AFC is challenging because in lots of years past, a lot of these AFC teams were very top heavy with winners, and the bottom half, if they were transposed into the NFC, would be playoff teams. And that normally had been a issue with the AFC. It kind of reminded me of the Western Conference of the NBA years back where, the 10th seed in the Western Conference would be a third seed in the East. And I would see that a lot of times in the AFC versus NFC. Excuse me. But they got rid of him. But, the crazy part is that Brian Flores, I will go ahead and say, more than likely will be a head coach next year, which says a lot that if you get rid of him, he's automatically a top candidate for coaching jobs. And I hear the buzz right now is that he's going to interview with the Bears.
Yep, that's what I heard too. I was just getting ready to say it. Look out for him in Chicago. And I think it would be a great marriage.
Yeah, me too. What I was really wondering with some of these teams letting the coaches go is how do you really some of them were letting the general managers go before the coach, such as, Dave Gettleman. But let me break into Brad's comment first. He says, isn't it ironic? Well, sorry. Ain't it ironic that Philly openly doubted Hurts? Yeah. And now they sit as division winners, but they didn't win the division, Brad. Unfortunately, they didn't win the division. They got the wild card. But I get you. I get your point. And Wentz flopped again. Remember how much praise Wentz got? Yeah, that's kind of funny, Brad, because Jalen basically had to go into this season still not knowing if Jalen was going to be their long-term solution, but they'd already let Carson Wentz go and got a bunch of – he's right, my bad, yeah. But he had gotten Philly got a bunch of draft picks, so they've set up really good this year. Where Hurts was still kind of questioned. Now, I'm not going to lie and say it was just because he's African-American. There was just not enough of a sample size in his first year because he split a lot of that time with Carson Wentz. So it wasn't so much that they were uneasy about him, but they just didn't really see a lot from him in year one. Now, I don't know if that even leaked over into practice where they just wasn't seeing him catch on to things in practice or what. But honestly, Philly should have had even a better record if Sirianni would have sat there and run Miles Sanders at the beginning of the year, which he did not do. I didn't say Siri.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you say
Siri, man. I said Sirianni, and okay. So anyway, but they didn't run the ball in the beginning of the year like they should have. And I think if you want to compliment a young quarterback, you got to have a run game and be able to throw it as well. And they leaned so heavily on him throwing the ball or running for his life. And Miles Sanders a lot of times would have less than 30 yards rushing. It made no sense to me. This guy, between him and Goddard and some of the other guys, Boston Scott, they could run the ball. And they just would not run the ball like they should. Stay committed to the run. And then it finally clicked and they started winning some games. And I'm like, dude, you probably threw away 2 to 3 games just by doing that. Yeah, you could have stayed on Dallas's heels for the East if you had done that earlier, but he didn't. So
yeah, and I completely agree with that, man. I remember previous shows we would come on here and we would talk about why Sanders getting 7 carries a game, but averages close to 5 yards per those carries. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. It really was.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they finally caught on to maybe what was hindering them.
Anthony says, and Anthony being a Washington football fan, I get it. Kirk Cousins always gets the head coach fired every team he plays for. Yeah, Zimmer's out in Minnesota. Also, they got rid of the general manager. Now, I was alluding to that with the whole New York thing, and I'll go back to that. But normally, if you're going to get rid of the general manager, you normally want to get rid of the coach as well, because you bring in a new general manager, you want him to really feel comfortable with his guy. And for a lot of teams, they've been mixing and matching a lot, and it's not really worked out. But at least I think they did it right this time. You know, Mike Zimmer is a good coach. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes you wear out your welcome with the team. And it's not because he's a bad guy. It's just, you know, mediocrity for a long period of time is where that is. Now, I don't know if their expectations were kind of like Miami. We should win the North. Well, you're not going to win the North because Green Bay is there and Aaron Rodgers is still there. It's kind of like the teams back in the day that had to go through the Chicago Bulls. You need to accept the fact that you're probably going to be number 2 at best. And that should be okay. Now, should you compete for second? Yeah, and you did. I believe they did get second over Chicago and Detroit. That's about right where you probably should end up. Now, you did have some bad losses, but you actually had some pretty impressive wins too. So it was an up and down team for sure. Kirk Cousins will give you good Kirk and bad Kirk. Sometimes from game to game, sometimes in the same game. You just don't know. Kirk, and that's kind of been his MO. Even when he was with Washington, you know, he'd have games. You like that? And he'd be balling out. Then he'd have other games and you'd be like, man, get this clown off the field. But obviously they still kept feeling like Kirk gave them the best chance to win games and stuff like that. And I know he missed the last 2 games, I believe, because of COVID. And, you know, he was definitely outspoken about the fact that he wasn't going to get vaccinated. So instead of missing the last 2, he probably could have just only missed 1 if he had already been vaccinated and went through the protocol that way, as long as he was asymptomatic and didn't show any symptoms. So that was very interesting. Brad says Sanders and Scott are a great combo in the backfield. Absolutely. And Anthony says, out of all the open head coach jobs, what team will be a headache or hard to build with?
I'm going with the New York Giants on that one. Those cupboards are bare. I said that at the beginning of the season. It turned out to be true. The Giants have a bad offensive line. The Giants have a running back that could be done as far as being explosive and being one of those upper echelon running backs in the league. Just too many injuries. The Giants have no wide receivers. Galladay was a huge disappointment, so I don't know what they're going to do going forward with him. And they have an unproven quarterback system, not system, but a pair of quarterbacks that I don't know which one of them you want to go forward with either. So the
Neither.
Giants are a train wreck right now. So
They
whoever
are.
takes that over, I mean, good Lord, man.
They're going to
got
need some
a hell of a
assurances
job
from
on
the.
your hands.
They're going to need some assurances from the Maras that, hey, you're gonna have to give me a minute to get this together, because
I'm
you're
telling
right.
you.
Saquon Barkley looks like when I say a shell of himself, I'm being nice. He looks done.
That explosion is gone, right?
Yeah, and that's what made him special.
Yeah.
So once a player's special niche is gone, then he's a jag. He's just a guy, and is he a serviceable running back? I don't know, because he couldn't even give me nothing in fantasy. Brad says F and Giants, they need everything. Now, Brad does follow the Giants too, because he is in New York, so he's a Rams fan. So we'll get that out of the way. But they do. They need so much stuff. You got to make a decision. I think it's by March or April about whether you're going to pick up the 5th year on Daniel Jones. Or are you going to try to go through the draft? Are you going to try to bridge the time by going through the draft, maybe picking up a diamond in the rough in the 2nd and 3rd round? More than likely, you're not going to get the top two quarterbacks. So are you going to go for moving up? Or are you going to just go for trying to find a 2nd or 3rd round pick and not pick up Jones's 5th year? I wouldn't pick it up. I'd make him play through it.
No way I picked that up.
That way I have a chance to cut him. Anthony says, what's more of a disappointment, Saquon or CMC? CMC.
Yeah, I would say CMC as well.
And I probably, maybe I'm a little leaning because that's my hometown team, and I would love to have seen what this kid can do. But I've seen this a couple of times with Carolina, where they will have a great player but can't stay healthy. I think of Dan Morgan back in the days as a middle linebacker. Christian McCaffrey, Brad, who is CMC. I think about Dan Morgan. I said Dan Morgan, the middle linebacker, but it's something about that position. Luke Kuechly cut his career short too. Still probably could be a Hall of Famer, but definitely had a lot more in the tank. And I think Christian, if he could have ever gotten through these, local guy, stop it. Everybody knows who CMC is. You ain't got to be in Carolina to know who CMC is.
Wow.
Anthony knows who CMC is. But anyway, C-Mac. But anyway, you see these guys and you realize that they have more tread. Now, Saquon, if I was a New York Giant, I probably would say Saquon as well, because when they drafted Saquon and the things that you saw him do with that speed, when Saquon running that open field, you wasn't going to bring him down when he had that burst like that. I mean, this dude's legs are just like two of me. Huge. That low body boom that he could have and the change of direction and all those things that made him special. And we didn't see none of that this year. And we thought that, okay, if Daniel Jones could lean on that, but then the offensive line was bad. So some of it is creating holes. But even times when he got through those holes, you just did not see that burst at all. So, yeah, I guess if I was more of a Giants fan, I could see it being Saquon. If I was an overall NFL fan, I'd probably look at both teams and say, probably both. But when you ask me, being a Carolina fan, I'm going to go with C-Mac.
I would go with C-Mac too, and just leaving the Carolina fandom of it out of it. Saquon has had some legitimate hardcore injuries to the lower extremity that's going to hamper any running back. When you look at Christian McCaffrey, he's really not had that, man. He's had like a quad bruise that took him out last year, a hamstring that limited him this year. So it's like he ain't had those severe lower body injuries that he's should be out of the game for a while, like Saquon has.
Right. That is true. Brad says he hates the Giants, but now he just feels sorry for them. Jets have more upside. Well, that is true. And that's
I agree with that.
And honestly, Brad, because of that truth is the reason that whoever takes that head coaching position, whoever takes that head coaching position for the Giants, man, that's going to be even more pressure because you got a team that shares the stadium with you that right now has a lot better upside with you.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't going to be able to live with that because normally if you're a Giants fan, you hate the Jets, and vice versa. So the fact that and the Jets, let's be honest, ain't no world beaters either. But if I had to pick a team to beat somebody, I would definitely pull for the Jets. Now the Jets are going to come around because I think they found their running back. I think they're figuring out some receivers. They got to figure out is Zach Wilson going to progress from year 1 to year 2? He was thrown into the fire in the AFC East. I mean, that's a lot. That he's going against Buffalo twice a year. He's going against New England twice a year. He's going against Miami twice a year. Brad says the whole world loves McCaffrey. That's that dude. Well, he's a personable guy. You know, he's got the little baby face. He could be a face of the league. You know, he's got all that going for him, minus all the Baker Mayfield commercials.
Yeah, I just hope 31 other teams love Christian McCaffrey. That's all I hope.
Yeah,
let's make a trade.
Yep. Anthony says, is it because if teams make their running backs number one, they don't last long? Well, for the longest, Anthony, even going back to Christian McCaffrey, the days of smaller premier backs to me should just be gone. I don't have a problem with the smaller back like a C-Mac, but I think you need change of pace backs. And one of C-Mac's biggest downfalls is that he didn't like to come out. He would play over 90% of the snaps. And I understand having him on the field is more of a threat than having him standing on the sideline for a play, which is fine if you're going to run a two-back set at times. And then you can do a lot of things with motion. And C-Mac, in my opinion, would have been great at that because how many times did C-Mac catch the ball in the flat? Because the quarterback would go through his reads, which meant, oh, God, I see a defensive end coming. Where's C-Mac? That's his reads. Not his hot reads, and then, I can dump it off to my running back. The running back became the hot read, first read, third read, all of that. And that was a problem. But how many times did we see C-Mac in the backfield, chip, come out to the flat, catch the ball, and go upfield? So if you had a two-back set a lot of times where they don't know which running back is getting the ball, or then in pre-snap, you motion one out to the flat, and you're already in a 2-by-1 receiver set, or you got three receivers on one side, you flank the running back that was in the backfield out to the other side, to the weak side. Now you create some mismatches. And they never used him like that. I would have loved to see C-Mac and Chuba in the back at the same time, or C-Mac and Amir Abdullah in the back at the same time, and really confuse some of these defenses and stuff. Not end up putting a lot of pressure on Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, because they knew that if they couldn't get if they rushed 8 to the ball, even if C-Mac caught the ball in the flat, he was only going to get 1 or 2 yards as a game. And they just keep the pressure on the backside. Now you throw another running back there. Now you got to account for almost 5 different receivers, including your tight end, because Tommy Tremble started to actually come on later. He was a rookie, so I expect him to get a little bit better. Ian Thomas, the verdict's still out on him, which it shouldn't be. But if you create more mismatches like that because you have a more diverse backfield, I think that can preserve your running back a little bit. But when he's the primary ball carrier, first down, second down, third down, you wear him out. And he's a competitor. He's not going to say, Coach, pull me out, you're wearing me out. He's going to stay in there as long as you let him. They even talked about one time they did pull him out. He checked himself back in before the coaches told him to go back in, because he wants to play. And I get that.
Yeah, it's a new league now, man. Defenses are more faster, more physical than ever. If you look around the league, the teams that we're looking at in the playoffs, they got two running backs deep that they use. You see
Yeah.
that with the Rams. You see that with Buffalo. You see that with
Cleveland?
New England. Definitely Cleveland, though they missed the playoffs. But I worry about that even with the Steelers and Najee Harris. They're gonna have to find a complement
Yes,
so he's not taking on all the load all the time.
exactly.
No running back is going to survive a 16, now 17 week schedule by just constantly carrying the load.
Yeah, I mean, unless your running back is built like Derrick Henry, and I would
Yeah,
even say as Derrick gets further and further into his career, you can't just keep using him as a battering ram like that. He a
nah,
bad man, but he is human. Now
yep,
he did hold up for the most part. You know, that injury he got, anybody could have got that. But he held up most of the season. And Jonathan Taylor is a nice sized dude too. But you got to be able to have a change of pace back. When Carolina was good, I talk about Carolina. When Carolina was good, it was D'Angelo and Jonathan Stewart.
oh yeah,
You know,
definitely that.
or you had Deshaun Foster back then, but you had that scat back as they called him, and then you had to change it. Then you had the power back. Even when we had Stephen Davis, and you knew all Stephen was going to do is take the ball and run forward, or you had the days of a fullback plowing the way. Mike Allstott, our
Hoover.
little dude, Mike Tolbert,
Yep, Mike Tolbert and Brad Hoover before him.
Hoover. The fullback is gone.
Yeah,
And I think that puts a lot more on the running back. Having a fullback to pull, man, fullbacks are unsung heroes back in the day. And I understand that a lot of teams are facing depth issues on their rosters, and they're trying to rob Peter to pay Paul a lot of times. So do I keep a position open for a fullback or two when that be better served by me having an extra corner, so we can go into some more prevents and more of five defensive backs, the nickel defense, that kind of thing. Do we use it there? Same reason why a lot of teams went from having three quarterbacks on the active roster to two quarterbacks, and then maybe keeping one tucked away on the practice squad. A lot of those are roster decisions, and that's why fullback is gone. And now that really, I think, affects a running back even more. You got a halfback, got a fullback, you can do some damage. Now you just got these halfbacks. I mean, it wears them out because they're smaller dudes now. They're not big guys, you know.
yeah,
And I mean, those are some hits that they take. A lot of times they stay in bounds. They're not trying to figure out where the sideline is. They staying in bounds and they taking a lot of punishment. So I really do think that more and more teams are going to have to figure that out for sure.
definitely.
Moving on along though. Man, we talked about it last week. This game was amazing. The Rams were beating the 49ers. Was it 17-0 or 14-0?
17.
It was
17.
17. It was 17. And the 49ers came back and won that game. Brad, I know if you're still watching, you ain't going to want to talk about this part. But it is something about these 49ers. They have the Rams number. I don't know what it is. I mean, don't get me wrong. Debo does Debo things. Elijah Mitchell did what Elijah Mitchell does. Okay, guys, it's been real. Got to go now. I know that's right. But don't go yet because we still got to talk about Denver and that team. But anyway, Debo even threw a pass for 24 yards. So, I mean, the guy can throw passes. He runs the ball. He's a freaking receiver. We'll get to the Chargers Raiders right after this one, Anthony, because you're right. That was a hell of a game, too. That was interesting. And, the head coach is getting some flack about calling that timeout, which he should. Brad says, I want revenge. Do you? Are you sure? I don't think you do. I think you want the easiest path to that chip. And I don't think you want San Francisco. He said that's a bad man. Yeah, Debo is just another level. He received 95 yards. He ran for 45 yards. He threw for 24 yards. I mean, damn. I mean, can he play corner? Well, actually, he probably could. But anyway, it's just crazy. Elijah Mitchell. So the running game was really good. They had over 130 yards rushing, which was really good for them. Jimmy G just didn't lose the game for you, even though he did throw 2 picks. He threw for over 300 yards. The biggest worry in that game for me was the Rams just took their foot off the gas. You know, Matthew Stafford does Matthew Stafford things. He's good in spurts. You know, Cooper Kupp was back to over 100 yards receiving. Definitely should win Offensive Player of the Year. But Stafford threw 3 touchdowns, but he also threw 2 untimely picks. One was at the end where he was trying to get the ball to Odell and he underthrew the ball. Had he sat there and led Odell with that pass, we'd be talking about a different story. But at the end of the day, he goes back to being Detroit's Matthew Stafford. We just don't know what he's going to be able to do in the playoffs because he's never won a playoff game. So he's going to have to right that ship, Rand. But whatever Shanahan told him at halftime, it worked. Brad says they smacked us around. We're not a physical team, and they beat our ass in the trenches. That's the other thing. You can be pretty, but pretty can get you hurt. The 49ers don't care how they win. You're right. They punched you in the mouth to see what you were going to do, and you ain't do nothing. He'd say it like that.
That's a good call on that, Brad. I mean, I thought the Rams were a physical football team at the beginning of the year. That physicality has been tested here over the last couple of weeks for real.
Yeah, they punked you.
Losing that.
They did. They punked you. They heard you thought you were physical, and they said, "Well, we got a real Debo."
Yeah.
And if you think about Debo for Friday, did anybody really punk Debo? Except at the end when Craig jumped on him. But Craig won that really unfair because he hit him with an object, and you know that's what you do. You pick up a brick and hit somebody. But they got their own Debo, and Rams, if you are going to want to continue to make it through the playoffs, because that's got to be the expectation now every year with you guys. Excuse me. Still got a cold. Is you guys got to make it to the playoffs. And then now making it to the playoffs isn't going to be good enough. Your fan base isn't going to allow it. You got to make deep runs. So if you're going to want to make deep runs into the playoffs, you're going to have to get nasty, physical. Realize that some games you're going to score 50 points. Some games you're going to score 9. And it's going to be, you're going to have to win. He says, we won 5 in a row, so we were hot. We'll be fine. Okay. Who you got first game? Cardinals. So the Rams and Brad, they must really, really believe that that's going to be a primetime game because it's Monday Night Football at SoFi, I believe. Yeah, it's at SoFi at 8:00 Monday night. It's gonna be a hell of a game. Depending on if we get the Kyler Murray that did what he did in Texas against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago, that's gonna be a hard game. But I am looking for the Rams to win that game. I really am. But I think it's going to be a competitive game. As long as Matthew Stafford cuts down on the interceptions and the bad plays. 31-20, 11 points, Brad. Man, I wish we bet. Is J.J. Watt coming back? Great question, Anthony. Yes. He has been designated to return. They held him out this past game because they didn't need him. They were already in. But I think he'll be ready. And is he going to be at 100%? Probably not. But I would take J.J. Watt at 85% and cause mismatches on the defensive end than not having him out there at all. The fact that he's out there, you're going to have to account for him on the other side of that ball. His last name is Watt. So I'm sorry. I just seen enough of these Watt guys. If he's on the field, Rand, then that means that he's healthy enough where you need to know where he is at all times.
Yep. Props to our Watt for setting the NFL sack record legitimately. 22.5.
That's right. So yeah, so Rams, that's gonna be a first game. Hey Ram, while I'm talking about that, out of all these teams playing this coming weekend, which one do you think is the most vulnerable team?
You know what? You're gonna like my answer. I think the Dallas Cowboys could be got. I do.
That
I do.
you know what? We didn't talk about that before, but that was my answer too.
Yeah.
All because of what I just said about what the 49ers do. See, there's different kinds of defense. Dallas got that more pretty defense. They got Trayvon catching balls, interceptions, running to the side, running to the end zone, doing all the dances and stuff. That's one defense. I just alluded to the fact that the defense for San Francisco is a dirty, grimy, gritty defense.
Yes, they are.
I don't know what's going to happen when they start smacking Dallas in the mouth.
Yep.
When Zeke start getting touched a little too many times, when Amari gets rubbed a couple of times, when CeeDee Lamb is getting hit across that middle a couple of times, you don't run them routes the same. When Dak is getting that middle pressure, get all game long, and he's got the happy feet, and he's having to make quicker decisions. I don't only think Dallas could get got; they're going down.
Hey man, that's a strong call, and I second it.
Yeah.
I know we haven't done primetime picks yet, but that's gonna be mine right there.
That's mine too, brother.
San Fran over Dallas.
If you didn't put another one down, I was gonna say, give me the Cowgirls against the field. They going down.
Yep.
I'm a little worried about the Bengals Raiders is really. Oh, I'm sorry, Anthony. Let me jump back because I did say we were going to talk about the Chargers Raiders, and I said the Raiders. That made me think about it. The Chargers Raiders game on Sunday went to overtime, and the only thing that would have kept the Steelers out of the playoffs is if the game would have ended in a tie. And then everybody's like, okay, well then the Steelers are in because there's no way in the world that this game is going to end in a tie or even get to a point where we're talking about a tie. Until we tied in the fourth quarter and we went to overtime. And, of course, the Raiders did not get a touchdown. They got a field goal. I'm sorry. Nobody scored. So the game was still tied. And they've used up all of the clock. This is literally going down to the end of the game. And the Raiders are out of field goal position. And they're like, great season, fellas. See y'all next week. Okay, Brad, be good. Be safe out there. Tell Mona I say hello. But it looks like at one point they were just going to be saying, hey, you know what? Instead of us doing anything stupid and turning this ball over, punt get blocked, whatever, we just going to run it out. Until the Chargers coach calls a freaking timeout. And they're like,
yep.
Oh, you still playing?
Right.
They're like, we was going to both get in.
Yep.
But you still playing.
Yep. That was actually discussed, man. It sure was. That was going to happen. Before that timeout was called, they were just
okay, so we're going to run this policy, what we get now. Oh, Jacobs just peeled off some real good chunks of yards. Now we are within field goal range, and the rest is, as we say, history. The Raiders are now going to the playoffs, and the Bolts are not. So, we'll see what happens, but there was a lot of criticism for that timeout. The coach said, no, I think they were going to run the ball anyway, but I don't think so. I honestly think that they basically decided it would be better if they both went into the game with a tie at that point to assure themselves of going. But once they saw him call that timeout, they was like, oh, okay, then let's go ahead and do this thing. And once they got that first down, man.
All I could say is thank you, Raiders. Thank you, God, too, because
that's why I was like, week 18 was just crazy. From Jacksonville, beating up on the Colts to the bookend of the Chargers Raiders game. I'm like, this is why you love football. This is why you love football.
Week 18 will probably go down in history as the best week of football in the regular season in NFL history.
Because there were still so many things left decided. There were so many things that hadn't been decided in the week 18.
And didn't get decided until the last minute of an overtime game of the last regular season game in the season. Insane, man. Yeah. Greatest regular season week in NFL history. Has to be.
Anthony says, I don't know why, but I'm picking the Eagles over Tampa Bay. That seems like a trap game.
Yeah, I can't go that strong with you, Anthony. I mean, Tom Brady is Tom Brady, man.
You know, Anthony, I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw the seeding, I kind of felt like this was the NCAA tournament where Duke Sisters of the Poor for the first 3 rounds. And then they go like, oh, we're in the Sweet 16. I'm like, well, who the hell did you just beat to get there? They put them in the weakest. Out of all the 4 brackets, they'll put Duke in the weakest so that they'll get at least to the Sweet 16. Now, out of all the teams that Tampa could have played, and I understand it's wins and losses, so I'm not that strong on the conspiracy theory, but still, out of all the teams that Tampa could have got, I would basically say the Eagles was the best team they could have gotten. They didn't want to see the Cowboys yet. They definitely don't want to see the Niners. They definitely don't want to see the Cardinals. They definitely don't want to see the Rams. The Eagles were the better team, but Tom Brady don't have a defense and AB, no wide receivers. Well, Jason Pierre-Paul coming back. Shaq Barrett coming back. Leonard Fournette coming back. He still has 3 tight ends that are very, very good. Not just okay, but very, very good. If I'm BA and Byron Leftwich, I'm coming out with design plays built around my tight ends. Period. Yep. Tight ends are my running backs. And I'm going to let my running, a lot of the plays that my tight ends make be an extension of my running game. Tom Brady does not have to push the ball 20 yards down the field to beat you. He's a dink and dunker for most of his career anyway. What do tight ends do best? They chip, they find an open spot in the middle of the defense, and they catch the ball.
Yep. Tom Brady is just great for so many reasons, but one of those reasons is his ability to adapt. I mean, he no longer has AB. You're right about that. He no longer has what's the other wide receiver that got hurt before AB? I can't remember.
Chris Godwin.
Godwin, yeah. So
you still got Mike. You still got Mike Evans.
You still got Mike Evans out there,
and you got Scotty Miller back, the guy that caught the ball in AB's place against Carolina. Did a great job. I can't think of his name because he's a young dude. But think about how many times Brady with the Patriots, we're throwing to a bunch of no names too.
And that is my point. His ability to adapt means he could go from this current Tampa offense back to his old days in New England, where he was finding little slot receivers and taking those slot receivers to 8-10 catches for over 100 yards.
Yeah.
Look to Scotty Miller in this game. I think if fantasy was still going on, I'd tell you to pick up Scotty Miller right now because
I would too.
He's going to have a big one.
And he says Mike Evans isn't the same. That's true. But you got to counter that on the other side. You got to score touchdowns against Brady and not field goals. Now, I will say this too. He says, Tom Brady had a defense to carry him. Yeah, but you look, his passing yards were pretty up there too, to a lot of no names. You're right. There were a lot of times when the defense did win the day for them, but they won a lot of times ugly. But a lot of times it was because Brady had the ball in his hands last. How many fourth quarter comebacks did Brady have in New England with receivers that didn't have no names on the back of their jerseys?
Many.
I mean, I don't want to minimize. I hear what you're saying, but I don't want to minimize Brady because if you bet against him, 9 times out of 10, he'll make you look bad. As long as he doesn't forget what down he's playing. Another thing to keep an eye on, Philly's going to have to really rely on their run game to even have a chance in this game. But if you get too far behind, the tendency is to get away from that run game and try to pass your way back into the game. That doesn't bode well for them. If they end up in that situation, game over. The other thing is running is going to be hard because I got 2 letters for you that are the same. VV, Vito Vea, big, as Dave Gettleman likes to call hog molly, that will plug up that freaking middle and can actually rush the quarterback. I don't know if you've ever seen Vito Vea, but when I say his name, I shake just a little bit. That is a bad man. And he came back last week and he put his thumb on the scale in that game. Vito Vea.
Yeah. I could already tell you the game plan for Tampa Bay's perspective against the Eagles. They're going to clog the middle, just like B said, take away the run, and they're going to make it a Jalen Hurts type of game where he has to pass to beat them. And I'm sorry, Jalen, it's your first playoff experience. You got to go into the home of the defending Super Bowl champions. That is not going to be a good look, man. It's really not. I feel a lot better if this game was in Philly, but it is not.
Me too. Yeah, this is gonna, in my opinion, this is going to be more of a get right game for Tampa, where they get to use this game to build momentum against the next team. Now, I'm certainly not saying they're looking past Sunday, because if you do that, you will lose. You respect your opponent, you play your opponent, you do what you're supposed to do. But if they do what they're supposed to do, then they'll be looking towards the following week and figuring out who they got after that. So yeah, the Cowboys definitely can lose to the Niners. I think the Bucks are going to beat the Eagles. When I look at the Rams, I think the Rams are going to edge out the Cardinals. But I'm going to be honest with you. Me saying that, I don't feel definite about that at all. I mean, to me, that's almost a coin flip. I'm just kind of giving the Rams an edge. Just because on paper, it looks like they should win that game. But we got to see if Stafford Odell, Stafford Cup, Stafford Higbee, running some running some plays, if they can really get their flow going. They take too many plays off where their offense is very streaky. And for that many weapons, your offense should not be that streaky like that.
Yeah, if the Cardinals had a healthy D-Hop in this game, I'd feel a lot better about their chances. But I think that's really going to hamper them in their ability to win in L.A. But we'll see. Prime time, anything can happen.
So what about the Bills and the Patriots? I kind of feel like the Mac Jones, Baby Brady train is probably going to come to an end this week, because I think that the Bills, even though everything that they've gone through, they're getting healthy at the right time. Cole Beasley is back. You've got Emmanuel Sanders back. I think Breida is back. So you got some running game. I think Zach Moss is still playing, Devin Singletary in the backfield. Of course, you got Stephon Diggs. I just don't see the Patriots having enough firepower. And unless it's a game where there's 60-mile-an-hour winds, even then, I think the Bills have figured that out. I don't think you're going to get the Bills twice.
Yeah, I got the Bills by at least 10 with this one, man.
Yeah, me too.
Mac Jones' first playoff experience. Again, it doesn't always go the way of a young quarterback when you on the road and it's your first playoff game. So yeah, I think that's going to hurt him the same as it hurts Hurts. So,
well, you're right, because I think it's going to be the same strategy in a way where we're going to take away what you do best and force you to beat us. We're going to put the ball back in the quarterback's hands, and we're going to force you to beat us. Do I trust Mac Jones to push the ball down the field? Hell no.
Nope.
Do I trust Jalen Hurts to push the ball down the field?
Hell no.
No way. And if they take your running game away and they make you be that pocket passer and reading the defense, picking up the blitzes, I would blitz so much, man, that you would wake up that night still thinking that I'm blitzing you. Oh my God. Especially against a young quarterback in playoff football, I would just send them boys after him. Yeah. That's the strategy. Let the boys go. Go eat, y'all. Go eat. Then you got your beloved Steelers going to Arrowhead to play the Chiefs. I'm giving the Steelers about 15% chance. I don't feel that good about the Chiefs, honestly.
I give
They're
them a
for
chance.
the same reason I said about the Rams. They're streaky. And I don't know how you can be so streaky when you got Travis Kelce and you got what's his name? No neck. Out there catching. I don't know how you do that. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of times inexplicably, when you run Patrick Mahomes off of his mark, normally when you would run him off, he throw them sidearm passes, underhand stuff, and things like that. And you're not getting as much of that this year. The Chiefs are now having to beat you more conventionally than they have before. Not a lot of tricks, not a lot of gadgets, just lining up and playing regular football. And that's not kind of been their brand. And I guess that's why it's hard to trust them, because it's like they're trying to redefine themselves and figure out who they are now and say, hey, I know who we were the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but we're adapting. And I guess in a lot of ways that's good, because you realize that some of those things just aren't working right now and you got to redefine yourself. So I guess that's a good thing, but it causes me a little bit of uncertainty, because I'm like, I don't know who y'all are. But maybe it's not for me to know who they are. Maybe it's for them to know who they are.
Yeah. I think intelligence tells you that the Chiefs will win this game. But in saying that, every year you have this team that seems destined to do things. When you go back and look at how Pittsburgh got into the playoffs and how Pittsburgh even sent Big Ben away on his final home game, all the things that had to go right for them, they seem to be kind of a team of destiny, so to speak. So if they go into KC and pull this one off, I will be really, really surprised, and even more so.
Rand, let's be honest. If the Steelers win that game, none of your neighbors will sleep that night.
They will not. They will not. They will not.
Right, rightfully so. Rightfully so. All right. What about the Raiders and the Bengals? How do you see this one coming?
I don't think the Vegas Raiders have the horses to run with Cincinnati, man. I think Burrow's going to have a field day. So that streak of Cincinnati not winning a playoff game since 91, Who Dey Nation, get ready to party come this weekend.
Who Dey. I totally agree. The Raiders have been a good story all year, dealing with, the adversity of everything swirling around their head coach. All about John Gruden. And then a couple of weeks ago, losing Coach Madden. I really felt like they won that game for Coach. Because his family was there. They lit the torch right before the game. So there was already some emotions in that game. It was just amazing to see what the Raiders have been able to do. All the Derek Carr haters, please continue to hate on Derek Carr. I would love to have him in Carolina. I will send
Pittsburgh.
Or Pittsburgh, but I will give you Matt Rule, Robbie Anderson, and Christian McCaffrey. And plus Derek Carr and 2 draft picks. Thank you very much. Anthony says, nah, sorry, there is Cinderella story. Sorry, there's no Cinderella story here. Pittsburgh not going to win. I don't know. I might actually put that in my water cooler pick as the Steelers, because nobody's going to pick the Steelers other than you. So I think I'm going to pick them because I don't believe in chalk. I don't think that every favorite team is going to win. And I do understand. I did say the 49ers were going to beat the Cowboys, and the 49ers are not favored in that game. But that's only because, and they're only not favored by 3 points. Well, not favored by 3 points when you're playing at home, to me, is a pick 'em. Because you should be able to get minimum 3 points because you got home field. The problem with the Cowboys is they win better on the road because AT&T Field is not home field for them. It is where they play, but other teams have been very, very comfortable playing at Jerry World. So it is not a true home field for them. Kind of like Carolina playing at Bank of America Stadium against the Eagles is not home field advantage. Yeah. Playing at Bank of America Stadium against the Steelers, damn sure ain't home field advantage. Or the Niners. There's a handful of teams that if you play them, that stadium looks more like their stadium.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not buying the fact that the Chiefs got a clear walkthrough on that game. I think the 49ers got a good chance with the Cowboys, and definitely think the Bengals are going to zip up and down the field on those Raiders. Justin went 6 for 6 on 4th down on the Raiders. He went on 4th and 27, scored the touchdown. That man is the future. Totally agree. Justin Herbert, once he cleans up a few of his interceptions, some of his interceptions weren't bad, but he is a little aggressive. But you're right. Anytime, they'll tell you there is no 4th and 27 play. Well, Justin Herbert found one in the end zone with no time left in the game that made that game even go into overtime to begin with. Absolutely right. I truly believe Justin Herbert is going to be with the Chargers for quite some time. You got to build around him, though. That's going to be the biggest thing. Shore up that defense, get a little stronger on that line. Your running game seems to be good with Eckler. So they're in the right direction for sure. Maybe I don't want to say get a different head coach, but your head coach is going to have to start making better in-game plays. Kind of like how the Cowboys have to overcome Mike McCarthy a lot of times. They're going to have to overcome their coach a lot of times to win some of these games.
Yep. Herbert, Burrow, and Mahomes are going to be the future of the AFC, and that is going to be fun to watch.
Yep. Now, I noticed you didn't say Lamar Jackson.
No, I did not. I sure didn't.
And I'm with you on that. I wouldn't have said it either.
Nope.
I wouldn't have said it either.
Nope.
Well, y'all, that's all we got for this week. This weekend is going to be crazy. We've got Saturday games. We got Sunday triple header, and we even got a Monday night game too. Anthony said you didn't say Josh Allen either.
Okay, let me add Josh in there too, but he's not quite as exciting as the other three, though.
And you didn't add to it. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, speaking of which, let me, before we get out of here, I would be remiss because I didn't even mention it at the beginning to congratulate Athens, Georgia on a national championship, taking down Alabama. Y'all were picked to go to the chip, and you did that, and you won convincingly, even though it started out a little slow. Wow. David knocked down Goliath. Well, I don't even want to call you David because you were heavily favored to win your conference, to basically go undefeated in your conference. But what it says on paper and what actually happens at the end is two totally different things. In a world of COVID where people get pulled off, put in protocols, having to change up lineups and all that kind of stuff, the fact that from the beginning to the end, you wrote your book. Congratulations, Georgia. Man, awesome. Yeah. I love you some Bulldogs. Congratulations.
First championship since Herschel Walker and the 82 Bulldogs back in the Sugar Bowl.
Wow.
Against Pittsburgh, I believe. Yep.
Yes.
40-some years ago. So congrats.
That is amazing. So I know we do a lot of NFL, but football to me is football. Congratulations. Matter of fact, football being football, the USFL has already picked 4 coaches already. Your Todd Haley is going to be one of those.
Yeah.
Down in Florida for Tampa Bay. So, and the other 4 will be announced pretty soon. So even after NFL, there's going to be some USFL, hopefully, with these 8 teams. The success of those 8 teams may spur growth of that league. But I agree with the fact they're going to start with 8 and grow it and see how it goes. So who knows? We'll be able to talk a little bit about that too. I'm very excited to see how this league is going to pan out.
Me too.
But yeah, man, I'm ready to keep the football going, man. It's going to be very good, almost like a developmental league too, because you're going to get a lot of players that are still aspiring to get to the NFL. The USFL may give them the film reels, the tape that they need to be able to take to the other team to show what it is that they can do.
Yep. And Donald Trump will have nothing to do with it this time, so it will succeed.
Well, then it's planned to be successful then. You know, that's all right, y'all. That's going to do it for us for this week. I look forward to seeing y'all next week. Y'all stay safe out there. Have fun with your teams. And we will see y'all next time. If I can find my outro, Rand. Where's my outro? I don't know what my outro is. God almighty. I think it's this one. Let's try it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta